Hello, hello, hello. This is Extreme Orange. Welcome to the Extreme Exchange. Today I'm joined with my good friends from primary school, Brendan. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Extreme Exchange. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Megan and Gareth. Say hi.
Hi.
So, as you'll notice, they are the first guests who are not the same age as me to be on the show, and I'm very, very excited to speak to them. So we know each other because we used to be, I used to be under their care in the Boys Brigade back in school, and they are currently still volunteering as officers there, serving and guiding the new generation of boys that join the program. So Megan is currently a student at NTU, and Gareth is currently working. So thank you both so much for making the time to be here. Something that also really bothered me was how sometimes ministry can feel very corporate, and like, because there are hard demands and deadlines that we need to meet sometimes, right? But as a result, it has the tendency to become very work-like. So I give you an example that kind of inspired this thing that I was thinking about, is that I went to my church like retreat, like cell leaders retreat kind of thing. Then they were sharing, this is my first time there, so they were sharing about some struggles that they had. And somebody said that they found that their conversations with people became very, I guess, deadline based. So they said that they had to speak to people because they needed something from them, but as a result, that's all they were speaking to them about. So they would text them, like they would initiate a conversation of, hey, how you been, over the last few days, and then after that they would be like, hey, so I need this from you in a few days, yeah. And I mean, I think we've all been there before, but I think the thing we need to think about is how do we go beyond that, because when I replied to that person, right, okay, the reason the person raised it up is because they were afraid that people saw through the initial, like, how are you, and then they would just be like, yeah, get on with what you want me to do. But at least for me personally, when I receive such a message, maybe I'm just like ignorant or whatever, but I don't get annoyed that they're trying to get me to do some form of work after that, because I do value the fact that we had an initial conversation about how we're doing, and to catch up. So that is just one example of how maybe it can become a bit too corporate with meeting deadlines and stuff. But how do you guys see, like, balancing this whole thing?
Can I give an evil answer first?
Yeah, sure. Like, we're exploring.
What I do is I ask people for the thing first, and then giving it to me. Then I ask, how are you?
You're at the center of those messages.
At that point, right? At that point, I really don't need them already, right? Then I take time to find out how they really are. Yeah.
That's not evil, though.
No, that's really,
it's the center of these messages.
In the middle.
I mean, I think it's a very fine line. I mean, I don't think I relate as much to this idea of like asking people to do work for me. But I think for me, it's just when I look at the ministry that I do, sometimes it's very works focused, and I think for me that's always an area of concern or something that I do struggle with, especially as a leader, because I need to get stuff done, and I don't have the capacity to do it myself. But at the same time, I don't want to be that person who's pushing work to people, right? To make people, to cause you to burn out. And I think that's why, like, it's very important for each person to be aligned with God when they do what they need to do. And I really cannot emphasize the importance of that any stronger now that I'm in a position. Like, okay, so I've been DB for longer already, right? So I stepped back a lot more from like the on the ground planning and things like that. And then I moved into more of like a maybe lazier role of
Megan arrows people. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, I guide people along. That's a nicer way of saying it. Yeah, but I think with that is to have to build that trust and relationship with the person so that you're in a place where you can ask them, are you working closely with God or not? And that's normally what I like tend to do a lot, to make sure that I have sufficient conversation with the person so that I know what their like spiritual health is, whether they are far or near from God. And things like asking them very directly about, like, have you been praying? How's your walk with God? Have you been hearing from Him? Have you been spending time with Him or not? Are questions that I will force myself to ask really before I give them any work at all, which means like before they even cross my mind. And because it's the danger, because work has to always be there. We have to admit that the work will always be there, the upside of things will always be there.
Yeah.
And the nature of us is that we like temporal pleasures. We like the fulfillment of finishing an event. We like the fulfillment of achieving a deliverable that we have set. Maybe for even sales leaders, it could be to text someone every single week. These kind of achievables, we thrive on these things. But the things that we don't consider as much is that spiritual health behind it. How's the person doing? Are the intentions right or not? And I think the devil always uses these small joys, right, temporal pleasures, to distract us from eternal priorities that we're meant to have. Which is, I mean, what all sin is like, right? It's like that temporal pleasure, but the consequence is separation from God. And is it really worth it, lah? And the devil will tell us that in that moment it is, because that temporal pleasure is great. And I think that's why the importance is really to make sure that when whatever ministry you do, right, it doesn't matter how much work you give them, it doesn't matter how much or like what kind of work you give them, how much, whether you're texting them for work or for whatever. It's important to build the relationship with the person so that you are able to keep the person accountable in their walk with God. And if that person is relying on God, if that person is doing their quiet time, that person is still seeking God for him or herself, then pile on the work, man. The person can do it. Because you also know that when I have that trust, like for example, my co-cell leader, right? I know that he works closely with God. So I can give him as much work as I want. Because I know that when he reaches a point, he'll tell me that, hey Meg, I can't do this. Like, I'm drifting away from God because of how much work I have. And we have that mutual trust in each other that we know that if we both value the same things, which is a strong foundation, strong relationship with God, no amount of work can cause it to disappear, I guess. And I guess you can trust the person more. I don't know, that's my perspective towards things, like, which is TLDR, that when with the problem of things becoming too corporate and ops focused and stuff like that, it's natural. Like, it's natural that there are a lot of things that needs to be done on a daily or like week-to-week basis. But the importance is you as a leader, or you as the person who's coordinating all these things, have to value the person's spiritual life. You have to place that priority on spirituality. You need to focus on developing that person's inner man and never neglect that. Because when you lose sight of the importance of that, the people who you lead will follow suit. They also will stop caring about their inner life and cultivating their inner life, which is exactly what distracts us from eternal purposes. Yeah. So I think that's just my thoughts towards it. Yeah.
You'd say that I guess the key to managing the balance is to realize that it's actually essential in the ops side of it as well. Like, because I think people tend to see them as two separate things. But the fact that they're actually very closely interlinked and that you cannot have one without the other. I think it's a very good way of striking the balance, or at least finding the balance there.
I think for me also, the change was happened when I realized that it was easy to focus on. Because sometimes we run away from it and we say that, like, we cannot pursue God at all if we're enjoying the ops or if we're like doing so much ops. But the reality of the fact is that we have to do these things because for the ministry to run at times. And the fact of the matter is that we actually will enjoy it just because it's a sense of purpose, a sense of accomplishment. And we're kind of like wired to enjoy all these small, like short-term goals, I guess, or like what I said, temporal pleasures, right? So I think the main focus is, as a leader, as the person who is in charge of it, to make sure that you or yourself keep that goal in mind. Yeah, like what Gareth mentioned, the purpose has to be there. You have to be purpose driven before all these things can like bind together, I guess.
I hope you all enjoyed that conversation. I mean, I hope that it was insightful in some way, or got you thinking a bit more. And I just thank you for taking the time to be here as well. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Extreme Exchange. Goodbye.
Bye.
Are we gonna hang up?